But when I went to facilitators and I said, so I've got this thing, would you be interested in facilitating? And they went, well, what's the program? And I said, well, there's no program. We're just going to wing it. We're just going to try it and see, and we're going to just iterate as we go on. And they went, no, we don't want to do what? No, we don't want to do that. And one guy said, his words were something like, they'll all be assholes. You're an asshole. You do it. That was his motivational speech.
Sounds accurate, though.
Thank you.
Welcome, everyone. I'm PJ Manney, and this is
Love Letters to the Future. I'm Laura, the co-host, and we're happy that you're here with us.
And we're going to talk, as we always do, about what are the stories and myths we've been telling that aren't working, and what are the better stories that we can tell to create a better future. And today I'm very honored to have with us a dear friend, Ian Harvey, known around the world as Harv. I am actually a part of Harv's organization, and it's called Collective Intelligence. Harv is known in New Zealand, where both he and I live, as a leader of leaders. He is someone who has looked at leadership and the structure of organizations, how they work, how they don't, and with incredible groups that he has built, helps companies figure out what's working, what's not, often, we have discovered, by destroying the very myths about what we think good leadership and good organization is. He has a t-shirt that if you can't see what it says, as it turns out, no one's got their shit together, which I think is one of the greatest titles of all time. Best title, best truth. I've got the book, which Harv wrote, and is an utterly delightful read. You rarely read books that are about business and organization and leadership and think, okay, at first as a page turner, I inhaled it in like a day. What I love about it is it's really Harv's voice. But I just want to read one quick thing in the back to kind of set this all up.
Can I just add that it came out last year, right? 2025. It's new.
Yep, this time last year.
So I'm gonna set Harv up by reading just the back of his book. Ian Harvey, a former sheep, beef, and deer farmer, chose a different path in his late 40s to satisfy an itch that just wouldn't go away. He established Collective Intelligence, a diverse human ecosystem that takes inspiration from Mother Nature to grow more emotionally intelligent leaders. As Harv says, the gift of not being an expert is that it leaves so much room to be curious about what the fuck is actually going on and how we best respond to that. One more disclaimer before we get going. If you have an issue with profanity, this show isn't for you anyway. Because I'm a New Yorker and the F word's a comma. So I really want to get into that notion because I think it's an incredibly powerful one and it gets to a core myth that we can jump off of. Why is it that not being the expert is actually potentially a superpower?
First of all, kia ora to everybody listening, which is a welcome from New Zealand. It is an absolute pleasure, honour to be here, PJ and Laura. When you introduced me, PJ, my heartbeat went up. I'm going, oh God, it's like this thing that I need to, sort of perform to. And I'm not a performer, but I just thought, whew, as you get older, you forget all the stuff you've done because I'm very much in the here and now, and I forget about all the shit that I've done before, and it's like, get on with stuff. What was the question, PJ?
So why is the gift of not being an expert such a gift?
Because you can forget stuff within 30 seconds. Look, I think, we have come from a past when I grew up that knowledge was a big deal, knowing stuff, you knew stuff, and that gave you kudos and status and all that sort of stuff. And people would put people on the pedestal, when they knew the thing. They knew the thing. And we elected politicians, and we still do from time to time, who we pretend they know the thing. Of course, in this day and age, nobody knows a thing. It's impossible. The world is so fucking complex.
It's so true within the scientific community, too. And I mean, I don't want to clump all scientists together, but people tend to put scientists on a pedestal as though they're all knowing. And then it depends on the scientists. Some, based on their insecurity, and I'm sure this is true with other fields too,
Yep.
they will go like, oh, that means I'm great and I can condescend to everybody else. And
Yep.
I think that's kind of a model. And then people end up looking up to them and they end up condescending back down. And it's just a terrible relationship where people feel disempowered on one end. And on the other side, you actually have a lot of incorrect douchebag assholes who pretend to be authorities when they're not. And I think that's kind of what you're saying is like, do we really have the answers?
Yeah. And, you know, when I started collective intelligence, I had no idea really what I was doing. And there are many days I still think that's the same today. And I had the idea back in 1994. I was 34 years of age. It was a hunch. And I just thought, putting a diverse team around. I was a company director of a number of companies. I was a very young director, and I was intrigued that people in these leadership positions became so isolated. And who could they share what was really going on? Because during the day, they're out there pretending it's all together, pretending they've got their shit together because they're the CEO or the managing director or whatever, right? And I knew it was complete bollocks. And as a company director, I wasn't very good at looking after the stakeholders. I was more interested in looking after the CEOs, which I saw as our biggest limiting factor. And sending people off to courses doesn't actually help them develop. You go along to a conference or a seminar and you get all excited and you go back into the fishbowl and you're muddy within 2 days ago, 2 days later. So I knew as a farmer, as a young farmer at that point, I was a Faye with these things called farm discussion groups, where farmers come together in New Zealand, and it's where most of our innovations come from, and they share ideas, and they will share because farmers don't really compete in the same market. They're selling their product into markets, but they will share ideas, and so they work because farmers don't compete with each other. So I thought, I'm going to set up a non-competitive business group, and from people from different industries. And I put this thing together, and I never intended to run it. But when I went to facilitators and I said, so I've got this thing, would you be interested in facilitating? And they went, well, what's the program? And I said, well, there's no program. We're just going to wing it. We're just going to try it and see, and we're going to just iterate as we go on. And they went, no, we don't want to do what? No, we don't want to do that. And one guy said, his words were something like, they'll all be assholes. You're an asshole. You do it. That was his motivational speech.
Sounds accurate, though.
Thank you. And he gave me 2 hours training, and I became a facilitator. And it was the most nervous morning of my life when these people were coming from around the country on a hunch. I went into the room with these people who were there on a promise, and I came clean. I said, okay, guys, I don't know what I'm doing, but, this is my intention. And that, we call them teams, and that team stayed together for 7 years.
What was the intention? I'm dying to know. You said you came together with an intention and a goal and a promise.
The intention was to try and decrease their isolation, lift their innovation, and learn from people from different industries. Back then, the diversity were all, we call them Pākehā, white people, and they were predominantly male, with a few women on the team. And the issue of isolation was real. And what they talked about, what was fascinating, when we created the space, it was fun, but it was confidential. It was deeply, and still is today. It's fun and confidential, and you take the status out of the room, so no status, right? Don't care how much money you have, you try and take all that out, and you have just people being people, connecting as people, and talking about real stuff. What was interesting, I thought they would talk about spreadsheets and projections and stuff like that. And they didn't. They talked about the struggles with teenage children, problems with their marriage, with health, with drinking too much. They would talk about the technical stuff as well, with sales and so forth. But the things that kept them awake were mostly the personal stuff. It was these things of being able to talk to somebody from this position as a CEO and go, my wife, she doesn't like me anymore. And I'm not sure I like her. And here I was, an untrained facilitator in a space that I'd created. And there were many, many moments that I felt so out of my depth. And I'll share one absolutely poignant moment. And it was a team came together and the focus was on sales. And this guy, and the team was well established at this point. And I'd learned after this team was outperformed everybody else. And they outperformed everybody else because their emotional intelligence was so high. They had 3 people in the team of 9. They had 3 with a high emotional intelligence. What that means is that you can push harder and you can have braver conversations. Right? And this chap was talking about his sales and how to lift his sales. And that was the focus of the day. And there was this lovely, quiet woman in the team. And she said when we came to give the feedback in the afternoon. So we gathered information during the morning, feedback in the afternoon. And this guy's name was Mark. And she said, look, Mark, the sales thing, yep, we'll get to that. But she said, first of all, I just want to bring something up on the table. Now, we interview people during these processes. We interview people who are relevant to the topic. We interview life partners, directors, customers, whoever's relevant to the core thing we're looking at. So the core thing here was sales. But Mark's wife, the host, had been in and around the team. And she said, Mark, I just want to put on the table that your wife's health has been really, really poor. And I think you need to look at yourself, because I think your wife's health has been poor because you've been a bit of an ass as a husband. And I think you need to look at that first and foremost.
That's harsh, but amazing.
Well, it wasn't delivered in a harsh way. It was delivered in a very direct. She did it in a way that wasn't judgmental. And it was a beautiful piece of, Now, I ended up facilitating a group of businessmen that afternoon, crying and thinking about their own journey as a husband, and that they'd all been asses, and that work came first, and the thing that was supposedly dear to them, this family, they'd been neglecting. The next morning, I had a mentor at this point. The next morning after the session, they come together for 2 days, and I sat down with my mentor and I said, I fucked the model. I said, everybody was crying yesterday. I said, I won't come back. And he said, no. He said, this is good. This is a good thing. I said, well, how's this good? Like I was shattered emotionally. And he said, no, you've just created a space. It's a sign. You've created a space. Keep going. He said, that'll be great. And they went on for years, this team. And it was and those moments to this day, they happen. I don't think, we have these teams, we have dozens of teams, and there's 9 to 10 people per team. And I don't think there has been a meeting where somebody hasn't cried at a meeting.
It sounds like you're bringing holistic, big picture viewpoints. And just to circle back around with what you started with, you said that not being an expert in everything. So if you'd have had a sales expert, they wouldn't have noticed the nuance, the big picture stuff, the other subtle things that you're saying. A non-expert in sales was able to see the real point behind the superficial point. And I think that's what you're saying.
It comes back to this diversity thing, right? The diversity thing is so important. We had a CEO one day, and it was his host day, and he was talking about very proudly how he worked 80 to 90 hours a week, right? And the other CEOs were sitting there going, he's a very hard worker. There was a very quiet woman. She was a coroner, not in the business world. And she looked at him quizzically and said, "But I thought you were good at this."
Oh, that's awesome.
And so from a totally different paradigm, she's going, you work 80 or 90 hours a week. You're obviously not very good at what you do. It's that diversity thing it's the unpredictability. And so our facilitators need to be loose and to observe and to hear what's going on, because we've learned the issue is never the issue.
If people want to join this from all over the world, can they?
They could do. They could do.
And what if they can't join it? What if they don't, have the access to it or join it? I mean, we have to be able to give them something here on this podcast now.
Yep.
What I'm hearing about the stories of how people interact and how they recognized, as Laura put it, that holistic moment of getting to the core of real issues and how everything is interconnected. It's intuition, and you often emphasize and admire people who have intuition, when intuition happens. How I interpret it is you're cutting at that myth that business is about data-based analysis and empirical framing in organizations. And we know in our hearts what's right and wrong, but we follow this false framing of how things are supposed to work and the institutional incentives and pressures. And ironically, it's following this false framing and these false stories and myths about business that fucks everything up. It's not listening to how we really feel or how things are really working or what the relationships really are. Can you talk some more about intuition? Because I think that's such an important message and the story we need to start talking about.
It's something that I developed early on without knowing it. And so I was born with hearing loss, and they picked it up when I was about 10. They told me at the time I couldn't be an airline pilot. That would be the big thing I couldn't do. I thought, that's cool, I don't want to do that anyway. But I learned to read a room, to stay safe in a classroom, because you're often saying the wrong thing at the wrong time or asking a question that's just been answered, stuff like that. And as a facilitator, it's great. So I can read a room of people from the corner of my eye and all that sort of stuff. So I think I developed that, PJ, and I started to trust that more than a lot of other stuff because I'd been working on it subconsciously for such a long time.
Well, do you think that other people also have intuition, but yet somehow they didn't need it for survival like you did, so they kind of sublimated it, and maybe like your ability to use your intuition could help other people figure out how to trust theirs?
Look, I just talked to a group of executives on Saturday night, and I said, that gut feeling thing, listen to it. That's your most accurate piece in your body. And when you're in a situation and your gut is telling you something, listen to that. It is the cleanest piece of data you're going to get. And you're going to have to interpret it, because your gut's not going to tell you exactly what the answer is, but your gut's telling you something. And I think listening to your body and learning that, and I'm not brilliant at this, but I think there are people who develop amazing receptors in their body, and we need to develop that more, and we need to acknowledge that it's real. It's real. You just can't put a mark next to it, right? You can't go, that's 73%, which also leads on to the fact that we need to give more credence to the subtle things in life, and the subtle skills are really, really important.
It also sounds like within your groups, if you've got a mix of like 9 or 10 people who are, being honest, and like honest to a degree of like, this is a hard thing to tell somebody that you're not going to hear. So I think we all have the intuition, but at some point we're taught or systematically been brought up to shut it down. And
Yeah.
if we're all shutting down to some degree or another our own intuition, if you had 9 or 10 friends who were looking at you, then that helps you to kind of feel the truth. That's what I'm hearing from what you're saying.
And the thing is, if you think about that woman giving that feedback to that guy, right? It's easier for her not to say anything.
Oh, yeah.
When I've brought other facilitators in their training and they go, why do they take this from each other? And I said, because the room's neutral. There's no power here.
You mentioned the word status earlier, and you were saying that it was somehow important that people not use their status, and I just kind of wanted you to talk about that a little bit more.
Status and all that hierarchy and all that stuff goes around with us. We don't see it, but everybody else sees it, right? And so, and people just bring it into the room that they're wealthy and they've got this position and so forth, right? And it's a facade. And
So
it
that's an
protects them.
old myth that maybe isn't working and isn't functioning, to get back to the point of the podcast. Using status is a bad story that we need to stop telling ourselves is effective.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so why? Why is status such a bad story?
Information stops flowing to you. So you're not getting the honest information because people are concerned about their promotion or losing their job or looking or getting offside with the boss, all that absolute bullshit, but was absolutely real.
Sure, because people who are bosses are surround themselves with like people who say yes, 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 yes. So you never get any honest feedback, and then you show the stupid movie or the idiotic ad or the thing, then because nobody said, "Hey, wait."
And even more interesting, it gets back to the lack of diversity, because all those yes men, there's a reason that phrase exists with the men tacked on the end. All those yes men are exactly like you. You've literally chosen to surround yourself with people who have the same thoughts, ideas, belief systems, everything. So you're never going to get anyone telling you you're full of crap.
We know more and care more about developing sports teams than we do about developing teams at work.
Oh, that's interesting.
Could you imagine a team coming out onto the field, whatever it is, a quarter field, and go, here's this team. They all look the same. They're the same size and they're identical. You'd never do that. You never want a team like that. You've got to have variation. You've got to have things that interconnect and you've got to have difference. And you don't want them all the same. And we put a lot of emphasis and training into these sports teams. We don't put as much emphasis on the teams at work. And if we did and started thinking, okay, what else do we need? And it's around this thing of comfort, right? One of the things I love with working with PJ is she makes me uncomfortable. She pisses me off, right? And she challenges me all the time, and I love it.
Sure.
Because
you have maturity enough to want to be pushed and to know that it's healthy and good for you, and you're not insecure.
A core belief of collective intelligence is you have to be comfortable with discomfort. Like Harv is saying it, but he's also modeling a core belief in the entire organization. You don't want to be there if you're not comfortable with discomfort, because you will be confronted. You will hear things you don't want to hear.
So if we're sending a love letter to the future, one of the messages will be get comfortable with discomfort, because it's almost like discomfort is honest.
Yeah.
All this other stuff is fake. And like you said, you're hiding behind status, or you're hiding behind pleasantries, or yes people, yes men. And it sounds like these people that you're getting together, what is it when you're so honest, brutally honest in a way, and I don't mean brutally in a negative way, I mean brutally in the sense of like ripped bare, where your soul is bare.
And look, there's two things. I don't believe in brutally honest, and I'm not sure what the term is, but it is actually caring enough.
caringly honest.
Yeah, we need to care, and we need to care enough. That woman cared enough for that guy because she did care about him, and to actually say the thing. And the other thing is being comfortable with being uncomfortable. I'm not sure that's possible either. Just being uncomfortable, it's nobody, it's just a thing. And going back to sports, the sports people who achieve the most are the ones that can, I don't think they enjoy being uncomfortable, but can tolerate the pain and the boredom and whatever else goes into their trading. It is going, this sucks, I'm uncomfortable, and I'm going to stay here. And I'm going to stay here. And I don't know the answer, and I don't know the answer, and I'm going to stay here. I'm not going to make up an answer just to move on. And, it was interesting with this session with these executives on Saturday. They were a smart group, and one woman asked me this really, really difficult question. And I thought really hard about it, and I said, look, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. And I said, this is a really tough situation you're in. Make sure you look after yourself. Take really good care of yourself.
The honesty you've been talking about, Harvey, that I personally witnessed in a group in Collective Intelligence, I would call it not brutal honesty, but compassionate honesty. It was enormously compassionate, and people were telling each other some really hard, they were communicating hard things about themselves, and they were accepting hard things about themselves, but the things that they were being told were always done with enormous compassion. It didn't make it less honest, but it was extremely compassionate. And I think that's a good way of framing it.
That is the word, and I believe in compassion more than just about anything else. Okay, so that it's just because compassion can be in many, many different forms. You can achieve so much with compassion.
Absolutely.
And it's not a soft, woolly thing at all.
No.
Right? And delivered well can be so effective. There's been so many things in the system of business, and it's not just business and NGOs and a whole range of things, is that we've been promoting the wrong people. We often promote people who are workaholics, and they've got ahead because they're always at fucking work, and they're not with their families, and they think that's a success, and they've been just working so hard. And so then they end up being the CEO, and the last thing they want is compassionate people beside them going, oh, Richard, actually, this thing, can we just talk about that thing yesterday, the conversation we had? Because those are really hard conversations.
I think also efficiency gets rewarded. Like if you can get something done really, really quickly, and it doesn't matter how many people you hurt in the way, or, I can think of so many examples where the person at the top is just screaming and cruel in order to get things done super quick. And it doesn't matter if there's, bodies strewn on the side.
What I think is so interesting is not just about the interpersonal, it's also the person and how they sit within the whole world. There's a quote from your book, Harv, doing business for the sake of shareholder returns only is one way to fuck the planet quickly. And it's not it's about sustainability at its core, which is something I definitely want to talk about regarding collective intelligence, because that's a whole underpinning to your organization is sustainability. But I think that it comes back to this thing about, with Laura saying efficiency, and this notion of, it's all about the work. And it's not just that we're ruining people's lives. We're actually ruining the planet, because if it's at all cost, the cost is everybody and everything else.
Of course. So, I'm just feeling, and I think maybe some of our listeners will be feeling this way too right now, because you two are in the thing and I haven't done the thing, and part of me wants to sign up for the thing, and our audience maybe want to sign up for the thing. But what are we to do about this mess?
Get interested in that view that you don't agree with. Understand that. Don't try and change their minds. Try and build a relationship, because that works. Creating relationships with people who you don't agree with is a really good muscle to grow. And I think that is a love letter to the future I want for my grandkids, that we go, oh, okay, because I often say, and it happens in collective intelligence teams, the really annoying person in the team might be right.
Damn them. Damn that annoying right person.
Yeah. And you sit there, and the number of times you're going, yeah, okay, yeah. And another thing that I think is a really important piece, the true wonderful leaders of the world didn't use many words. And I think we need to get better at using less words in our communication and then create space. Because people say, how do you know a team is working really well? I said, when they're quiet. And I think that's the same with boards. You know, how do you know when a board is going well? I said, when they're not talking all the fucking time.
Wow. Wow.
You know, be quiet. Be quiet. If you've got nothing to add to the conversation, shut up and listen, you know. And if you look at the likes of Gandhi, use very few words, but he spent a lot of time thinking. And then the other piece that we've learned, especially with diversity, it's stop giving advice and start asking questions, and let the questions do the work, and let the questions be short and sharp. The fewer words you can ask the question in, the better, and then be quiet. And we are so attuned to filling up the room with fucking noise. The facilitators were quiet so often during the day, and that there would be moments of 60 seconds where nobody said anything, and all just sitting there going. And so I think we need to develop the muscle of being quiet and going, do I need to talk now? And I know this is a tricky thing to drop into a podcast now, because people actually do want to hear something.
They do. I have a question. I kind of have a desire that now that you've been talking, I've been building a desire within. I kind of wanted you to walk us through an example, even like an example right now, preferably rather than an example from the past, but either. Because like I understand it intellectually, and I think our audience probably understands it intellectually, but if we could all walk together through an example, that might help a lot.
How one of our teams work?
No, or like what you were just saying about like when there's a problem, instead of giving advice, asking a question, and asking a really small question to get to. I would like to see that in action.
Okay. So should we do that in a role play?
I would love that. PJ, do you have a question or a problem? I mean, I can think of a million questions and problems, and
Give us something. Give us a focus.
I mean, all I can think of right now is all the problems that are literally going on in, my home country. That, I mean, people like the deep, deep feeling of wanting to do something, but not knowing what to do, and the anxiety that brings.
Okay.
That's my big question.
So why do you think you need to do something?
Really? Because, and this is going to go back to what you said about sitting in silence. There's pain. The idea that if moving and action can alleviate the suffering, but of course, that's probably an illusion. It's the same illusion why people want to fill up the space with noise. There's a parallel.
So I'm just going to let you know what happened there. Did you feel it, PJ? My heart connected. Yeah? So our three hearts connected then. Just with that one simple question, okay, and clocking on to your need to do something, which I get, okay? Mm-hmm. And when you responded to that, before you responded to that, your whole body changed because I saw you.
I guess my need to be real and honest with you, even though I've just met you, was stronger than my pain, is what you saw.
Yeah. So we talk about like-hearted people, not like-minded. And there's a big difference. So right then, in that moment, our three hearts connected, even though we're long distance apart. I think most people want the same thing. They're just going about it differently. And we need to be able to see people. So that's an example of a question. Okay? And the question was compassionate. And it was interesting to see it, the effect on your body. And that's, you've got to observe, you've got to see what's happening over there. And you can do it on the screen, you know, and we're all being quiet at the moment.
I wonder if you guys think that people who were listening to this now felt that too, even though they're listening to it at a different time than we're recording it.
Let's find out.
The moment he said that, asked that question of you, I could feel it without even seeing you. And then I heard your voice change. I could hear you speaking from a different part of your body. I could feel the shift. I didn't even have to see it.
Okay, so people can feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. I think that's good to give people, and me and everybody listening, a chance to kind of actually have the experience rather than talking around it, or in addition to talking around it.
And this speaks to, we haven't got time for it today, but Indigenous knowledge and customs. Now, the interesting thing is that when you clear the air, when you clear the space, okay, and you find out what is in the room, how many times do you go to a meeting and you've got no idea what's in the room? What's in the room? You know, what's here? What's alive? What's going on? And so it's a key part of, we need to learn to be human. We need to build our capacity to be human and to show what's really there. And we've developed, you know, these silly things. You know, PJ taught me this about, you know, the Superman and the superheroes. They put things back the way they were. We don't need that. We need things to be put back together
Better than they were. Yeah.
Better than they were, right? And this, PJ, this word sustainability, I don't even believe in the term anymore, because as white people, we have not developed any sustainable practice. We've just raped and pillaged as we've gone on. And we need to develop regenerative practices that build things and learn from nature, that things break and so forth, and when we put them back together again, they're better and they're younger and they're more vibrant. And so we need to learn from nature. And I think the love letters to the future is look to nature, not the textbooks of corporate structures and so forth, because they're just not working.
No, it's so clear at every level.
At every level. Well, they're not even working for the fucking billionaires, you know?
Yeah.
They're just mostly twats.
Well, speaking of the 20 billionaires, so I've noticed this when I was at NASA that, and certainly in a course that where PJ and I met, they used to say like getting here is the hardest part, and the most important part. And I did notice that the leaders who needed the course weren't in the course. It sounds to me that this project that you're onto would be an amazing love letter for the future. But how do we get it? How do we get people to adopt some of these principles that you're talking about?
Why should they? Because there's so many people at the moment think that they're doing just fine. It's a real problem. They're getting the rewards now. I mean, that's a generalization. Mm-hmm. Look, we are trialing this. We've been going 19 years, and it's been a process of trial and error. The key thing is that we bring real people together with real people, with real people, with real people. We've developed some online teams now, and they're working just like we're conversing now online. They can converse, and as long as they can connect through the heart, then it works, and they can get on with great work. So, you know, we would love to take this internationally if it was accepted.
your website says something like that it is in several different countries, but that's on the internet only.
Yep,
Got it,
yep,
got it, got
yep.
it.
So what I've learned from Maori, who are Indigenous people, their view to governance is intergenerational, and they think long term. Maori think about 100-year plan minimum.
Wow, that's smart.
And when you think of 100-year plans, your short-term actions change. And so I've tried to adopt that and going, the worst thing we could do is rush this.
Mm-hmm.
And as PJ has pointed out, I mean, this has been the most difficult thing I've ever done, by far. But it's interesting, we're starting to get noticed now,
Yep.
you know?
That is
And
interesting. Yeah. Well, if you had a request, like I'm imagining that many people are going to be listening right now who aren't necessarily living in New Zealand right now. So, I mean, yeah, like what's your biggest dream? What's your biggest wish? What's your biggest desire right
my,
now?
my biggest desire is that the sparks from New Zealand start to go and catch hold in small, humble ways, just quietly.
Well, maybe this is one of those sparks for you right now.
It really is. Promoting ourselves is something we're not very good at, to our detriment. To our
Well,
detriment.
you just described a situation where you get a group of people and, the empowering nature of a group. So you get somebody who has a discomfort around promotion and then somebody who
Yeah, yeah,
pushes them,
yeah.
into their discomfort and then somebody, that's exactly the message that you've been advocating for.
And the thing I love about PJ is that when she disagrees with me, she tells me, right? And it's so good for me. And and PJ's been banging on for the last 6 months. What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you trying to create? And it's just fucked me off so much because I'll go, she'll go, no, it's not that, it's not that, it's not that. And we reached agreement last week, PJ, for the first time. And what I'm trying to do is to create a home for people who care enough to change their world. And that shows up in lots and lots of different ways. Because it starts here. You can't change anything out there. You can only change this. When you change this, then this stuff out here starts changing.
So for those of you who are only listening to audio, he's pointing to his heart.
Yeah. When I look through Indigenous focus, that's where I'm looking for.
Yeah.
It is more relevant and understood now than ever before. And so it feels like it's all about the timing, and we've been too early with this idea, but it's given us time to test it in hundreds of different environments. I sit in this place of a whole range of things: frustration, gratitude, excitement. It feels possible. It feels possible to create a different future.
If people want to get involved, what should they do?
We are happy to help people in other countries. We've got the systems and so forth. It's the subtle things that make a difference with our process.
Okay.
Right? It's the things you can't see. It's about actually creating the teams. And there is a science around that and there's an art around that. It's about also working out who it's not for. And so who it's for, collective intelligence is for people who are good at what they do. There's a foundation for our work. They need to be curious about people not like them. They need to be curious about themselves. And why are they such a dick? Right? Because we're all dicks. Right?
Huge dicks. Massive fucking dicks.
If you can't laugh at yourself, it's not a great place to be, because humour is a big part of it. They need to be ambitious to develop as a person. They need to be ambitious to develop. And the last one, they've got to be brave enough to be themselves.
Yes.
And if I could pick one, it's the last one. Be brave enough to be yourself. We can develop online teams easily. We haven't wanted to go anywhere unless we're invited. And so we're not going to go and colonize. You try and put that into a business plan, it's not great.
I'm not a business person, so I don't even know. I just know that when you talk, people are going to be interested in participating. That I know. I mean, there's a lot of things I don't know, but that is one thing that I do.
Thank you. The Love Letters to the Future. It's a great title.
Maybe we'll make a Love Letters Collective Intelligence Group sprung out of this podcast. I mean, stranger things have happened, believe me.
Oh, absolutely.
We had a woman who did some marketing for us 6 or 7 years ago, and then she joined a team. She went, oh, this is not what I was expecting.
That's hilarious.
She said, oh, and we spent a significant amount of money with her, and she went, oh my God, the power of this we couldn't comprehend.
Yeah, sometimes a thing's hard to explain until you're doing it, which is kind of why I wanted you to walk us through an example. So you said that people don't need to live in the same city, though. They come together 3 times a year for 2 days?
They travel, yeah. And look, we have people from across the country, so we're a long, skinny little country. And we tried regional teams to make it, easier and so forth. They didn't work as well because people would start talking about the city council and the roads and the weather and stuff like that. We don't want that. We want to bring people together bring their different worlds together from all, right? And come in, and they're not talking about that. They've got that's not their thing. It is to lift their gaze into a bigger view, right? This does take effort. It's easier not to come to the meeting than to be there.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think one thing that you both have talked about without using the word is commitment.
100%. And so not coming to a meeting because of family is fine. Not coming to a meeting because you're too busy is not fun. And our meetings are always during the week. My team is meeting in Dunedin next week, and so we've got to go down to the bottom of the country. It's fucking hassle getting down there. But once I get there, I go, oh, amazing. It is a very selfish spot. It is about me and it's about them. And you're one of 10. It is mostly about others. But you are there to learn off the others. And often somebody will be doing something that they make it look so easy. And go, how do you do that? And then you see people really struggling with something going, oh my God, that's me. And so it's active learning. There are extraordinary people everywhere doing really humble, quiet things. And it's the thing with our teams is that we've had some very high profile people in our teams. We've had a Prime Minister in a team. We've had All Blacks, the
rugby team.
Here's a downside of my work. As I go along to some event and there'll be somebody up on stage talking up a storm and presenting themselves as this thing. And I sit there with a smile on my face. I go, I wonder what's really going on in their life.
Yeah, because anytime anybody's bragging, they're basically covering up for some insecurity.
Yeah, it hasn't made me cynical. It's made me a little bit cheeky, I think, with times. And you see it with politicians especially.
Yeah.
The thing that when politicians come out and they've got the answer to the thing, I'm going, oh, Johnny, you know that's not true. You know you've made that up.
Don't talk to me about politicians making shit up. We're surrounded by it. So people from around the world can join or they can't. And people can do remotely, kind of. I mean, I'm still, it's a little confused around that.
Okay. We have teams, we have remote teams, online teams in our time zone. Okay, New Zealand, Australia.
So you do have remote teams, but the time zones are in New Zealand and Australia time zones.
Those teams meet more often.
Oh, okay.
And they meet for 6 hours at a time. Okay, because that's enough to be on screen. Okay?
Yeah, of course.
So they meet more often, and then these teams generally come together once a year. We will set up teams around the world when we're invited, when we know we're welcome there, when the time is right. And so right now, they can sign up to our newsletter, they can get our podcast, they can stay involved in that respect, they can read the book, and to get an idea. Because here's the thing: some people think this is what they want, and it's not.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, that's true with everything.
And people will say, yes, I want to be challenged. And I'm very wary of people who say, I want to be challenged, because invariably they don't.
Yeah.
Really? See, I mean, I know I'm arrogant, but I really think I want to be challenged.
There you go. So I would keep my eye out for that. And so I'd say to the facilitator, so I've talked to Laura, she's coming in. She said she wants to be challenged, so just keep an eye out for that.
What else have you got, PJ? Did we cover everything on your paper?
I think we've covered so much today. If I could go back, I'd want to talk more about the indigenous aspects of collective intelligence, but I actually think that that's something, just like we were saying, you don't want to impose this on other cultures. Other cultures will find the thing that they respond to in their own indigeneity. And I think that's incredibly important because that's the ground we all sit and stand on. I'm comfortable in a New Zealand context because I've lived here for many years. I'm a citizen. I'm very comfortable with the culture. I love the culture. It's a culture I actually find I understand in my heart better than I understand the culture I was technically born into. But what I think is the most important thing about what we've all talked about today is there's so many ways of looking at things that we assume, like business. We get MBAs, we run boards, we do all of these things. We have jobs in these business ecosystems. And we assume that there's only one way to do things because that's what, the MBA said, or that's what the CEO said. And what you discover is 9 times out of 10, it's actually the worst way to do the thing. It's just what they're comfortable with and what they think that they're comfortable with because that's all they know.
Yeah, because we've been doing it again and again for hundreds or longer of years.
Exactly. And you have to remember, it goes back to that Ursula Le Guin quote, which I'm going to mangle because I can never remember it directly. But basically, we assume capitalism is an assumption. It has always been. But then so did people think was the divine right of kings. We live in a capitalist structure that's really only 200 years old. In those 200 years, we have codified, solidified, and now we're mired in this cement of assumption of how a world works, and it doesn't. And it's not. And we wouldn't be in the crisis globally we are now if it did. So here's an opportunity to examine everything that we thought we knew, open up, be willing to listen, be curious, be willing to try new ways of thinking and seeing and being. And I think collective intelligence is one of the great aspects, great attempts at this, and is doing incredible work in this country, New Zealand, on the ground every day.
It seems like a seed, a sprout that's coming up from the broken ruins of what capitalism is crumbling into. And it's 20 years old, you said. It's young, and it's the new leaves are branching out.
It's young and yet it's very old because indigenous cultures have been using collective intelligence for thousands of years.
That's right.
And so we have learnt so much from Māori, Moko Whakapuru, which is the journey from being profoundly ignorant of the culture. Here is showing some wisdom. There's lots of ancient knowledge that is there that we need to tap into. I think of it this way: I'm indigenous to this planet. I'm not indigenous to this land, but the more I can learn to live with the soil and to live with my environment steps me closer to being indigenous. And I think it is a journey that I'll never complete. There's one thing I'd love to leave you with is this: we need to work on unlearning and to create space to learn new things and to get rid of our ego and our status and learn from a range of people and look to the young people and support them and look to the quiet people and look to the people that haven't had a voice, look to our Indigenous to unlearn shit that's just not working and recognise it for what it is and create space.
Harv, thank you so much. This has been fantastic, and I am so thrilled I get to share you with everyone because meeting you was one of those weird quirks of fate. Everyone, thank you for joining us on Love Letters to the Future. Don't forget to subscribe so you know when we have a new show coming up, and join us. We have a Substack. Follow the show notes. You'll find Harv and Collective Intelligence as well. Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to see you and hear you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Love you guys. Bye.
Love you. Bye.